is the Max Kellerman Show. Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio.
Yeah, the Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. What's up, nerds? Merry Christmas. I know I'm early, but, you know, boy, the holidays are really getting ready to start. You think people mail it in tomorrow, right? New York, you got a basketball team. You got a basketball team that's heading for the finals. I'm going to get to that in a second. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. New York, we got a basketball team. Because I'm a New Yorker, and let me tell you something. Insofar, I'm also in L.A. 6 years. I was in L.A. 6 years. I switched my allegiance to the Lakers. But I'll tell you something about the New York basketball team, the Brooklyn Nets. If you live in New York and you're still a Knicks fan, you got some soul searching to do. You got to do some inventory. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. I understand, like, diehard fans. But Dolan should have killed you off by now. I mean, we had no choice, Knicks fans. For so many years, there was no choice. It was the Knicks or nothing, right? There's a choice now. For the first time in your life, you have a choice. Choose wisely. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Meantime, L.A. You think the Clippers showed the Lakers they're going to be a problem last night? See, in the business, this is called a tease. I throw it out there. You don't know what I think, do you, right? And then you have to wait for it. The answer is no. The Clippers, no problem for the Lakers. That's right, Raj, my producer in L.A. I ruined the tease. Be a part of Max Kellerman Nation on the Dr. Pepper Twitter feed call-in line. ESPN Nation's presented by Dr. Pepper. The college football season is winding down. So is your favorite Dr. Pepper-loving college football town, Fansville. Head to a store near you to treat your inner college football fan to an ice-cold 20-ounce Dr. Pepper today. But first, it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. James Harden responds. The weird thing about a 2 p.m. show on the East Coast is I got all this stuff to talk about from last night, but then news breaks. News about James Harden, right? James Harden, quote, one thing after another. What, did he post this on his IG, right? I went to show love to my homegirl at her event, parentheses, not a strip club, because she's becoming a boss and putting her people in a position of success, and now it's a problem. Every day it's something different. No matter how many times people try to drag my name under, you can't. The real always end on top. Well, let me tell you something. That's great that he went to show his love and everything. He should be wearing a mask. This ain't that hard, James. Come on. No, but she got tested, and so did I. All right. In certain circumstances, I understand. You both got COVID tests. You see each other frequently. People usually do have groups of 6 or 8 or 10 people all together, and if you remain closed in that group, even that's not that safe because each one of those people maybe has their own little extra group that, includes more people, etc. But I get it. Realistically, I get people do that. That doesn't sound like what this was. James, that doesn't sound, why don't you have a mask on, brother? But beyond all that, for my initial impression was, and by the way, if his homegirl is now in a position to put other people in positions of success, good for her, and good for James Harden for supporting her. But not like that, man. You still got to be safe nowadays. I'll say this, though. James Harden's stock, like the Rockets have this all wrong. They think we're not getting a good enough deal for him. Hey, James, don't hurt your trade value, right? Because then the Rockets will never trade you. It's not the way it works. The owners have a de facto monopoly in the NBA, right? If you're a great basketball player, you want to get rich in this country playing basketball, you got to play in the NBA. So when the collective bargaining agreement happens with the players union, the owners have an enormous advantage, and they win those negotiations. You know what the players have in exchange? Superstars call shots. There's nothing you can do. Well, we're not going to cave and just let a guy hold a franchise hostage. He still has to play to earn his money. Not exactly. He can show up, not have his heart and soul in it. He can put up numbers, still be detrimental to the team's chemistry and all that. Still make it really untenable to keep him on the team. You will trade the superstar tells the team what to do. The teams, let me disabuse teams of notions. True superstars are the boss. They call the shots. Owners got to get that through their heads, including Tillman Fertitta. James is the boss. He will get his money, you will pay him, and he will also submarine your franchise if you don't trade him, right? So now, since you understand that now, let me explain what's going to happen. I explained this about, buying a car. The way you're supposed to is you call a bunch of dealerships in a certain radius within your area, and you say, look, I know what make, model, color, all that stuff I want. I know what I want to pay for it. Give me your best offer right now. I'm only going to make one phone call to each place. Whoever gives me their best offer, that's the one I'm going with. Now, the dealership will tell you, well, no, hold on a second. Come down, look at the car. No, I don't need to look at anything. I've seen it. I know what I want. Okay? Well, but come back to me if you get a better deal than this. I'm not coming back to anybody. I'm telling you right now, I'm going with the best deal. What that forces them to do is give you the best deal right away. Because they're competing with everyone. There will be no negotiation. They will come with their best offer immediately. That's what the Rockets have to do right now with Harden. Get your best offer now. Because the longer you wait, the more of a malcontent he is, the more teams get scared off, the lower his trade value. You understand how this works? Now, interestingly, the lower his trade value, the easier he is to trade, right? More teams can actually get in on the bidding. That's good for Harden. No, he only wants to go to this place or that place. He wants off the Rockets right now. That's good for Harden if his trade value goes down. It's bad for the Rockets. They got to move him. They have to move him. And here's the next thing. That was Straight Talk Wireless. No contract, no compromise. KD looked like KD against the Warriors. First of all, I told everybody the Warriors don't have enough shooting. They have the greatest shooter of all time in Steph Curry. I mean, considering how he has to get his own shot, his handles, the whole thing, from distance from where he shoots, the whole thing, the usage rate, Steph Curry's the greatest shooter of all time. It's not particularly close, by the way. I love Ray Allen. A bunch of guys can shoot the lights out. Clay can shoot the lights out. Steph Curry's the greatest shooter of all time. He's the only above-average shooter at his position. Check that. There is not even a single average NBA three-point shooter at any other position on the Warriors. Right? For a starting two-guard, forward, power forward, center, whatever positions you want in the newfangled NBA, right, you want to say, none of them shoot as an average player for their position, either as a starter or a backup. No one. Only Steph, not enough shooting. You know who has enough shooting? The Brooklyn Nets. KD already looks like 80% of himself at least. That should get better. So barring injury, knock wood, it's going to be a problem. You know what the thing about KD and Kyrie is? Because they're both pure shooters, in addition, especially KD, to being a defender, in addition to being able to get their own shot, to being great passers, to be all three-level scorers, in addition to all that stuff, when you're pure shooters from distance as they are, you don't need to surround them with shooters. They're the shooters. You know, LeBron can hit shots from certain spots, but he's not a pure shooter, right? So you got to surround him with shooters. He's got to at least have some. You look at Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, you need to put shooters around them. And shooters are often not really great at, like, sometimes you get 3-and-D guys. You're lucky if you get those around superstars. But 3-and-D guys who can get their own shots, those are stars, right? So those are hard to find. A little easier to find guys who can't shoot and maybe do two other things, right? So when you have two shooters like K, let me give you an example. The Nets have Dinwiddie. He ain't a shooter. They have Allen. He ain't a shooter. Right? Can you put guys like that around Ben Simmons? No. But you can put them around, or even LeBron. Maybe not the best idea, but you can put them around KD and Kyrie. So now when you look at and Kenny Anderson pointed this out on the halftime show. I disagree that Jeff Green could start on 50% of Jeff Green could start on 0% of teams. But he's an interesting piece there. And DeAndre Jordan's, he's okay. But 15 minutes a game at center, sure. But when you look at the Nets' non-Kyrie KD players, let's just take them. When you compare them to, say, the Bucks, right? So the Bucks have, without Giannis, they have Middleton, Drew Holiday, Brook Lopez. Okay, that's the main support to Giannis. And who? DiVincenzo? because they didn't get, Brogdon they didn't sign, and Mirotic left for Europe a year ago, and they didn't get Bogdanovic. So this is their team. Now compare that to the supporting cast for KD. Like KD to the Freak, right? There's the comparison. In the East, the two best players. Dinwiddie, LeVert, Joe Harris, and Allen. I mean, if the Bucks supporting cast is better than the Nets, it's only by a very little bit. But I didn't even bring up Kyrie Irving. Do you understand? KD's supporting cast without Kyrie is more or less, probably a little less, the equivalent of the Bucks supporting cast. But plus KD has Kyrie. And for that reason, the Nets cannot make a Harden deal. I wouldn't trade for James Harden, a ball stopper who would completely wreck the depth of the team because you have to trade everything you have to get him. The Nets, as is, will not be stopped in the East. Jordan Schultz joins us now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, ESPN NBA insider / analyst. What do you like? Is that a good title for you, Jordan? Are you the insider analyst? What do you like better?
I don't even know, bro. I think it changes by the day, but I will definitely take it. And
yeah.
It's after what you just said about the Nets, I'm fired up because I'm with you, and I saw a lot to be happy about last night if I'm a Brooklyn fan.
What did you like about the Nets? Well, first of all, let me ask you this. My take is this. Before we even get into that, they can't trade for James Harden. They are really deep. They have a guy like Karis LeVert who has a smooth offensive game off the bench, apparently doesn't need the ball as much as I thought. They have a lot of guys who really complement these guys. I wouldn't make that move for Harden even if it were available. What do you think about that?
I totally agree with you. I think, first of all, with Brooklyn last night, you saw Kevin Durant, 18 months off, no problem. He was comfortable. It's not just the scoring, it was the versatility, and it was also the freedom of movement. I thought he had that 18-foot pull-up and one in the first quarter where you saw him take that hard dribble and explode, and then he changes speeds. And then you have the friendship, the prerequisite friendship between him and Kyrie and that comfort level on the floor, Max. So they have this relationship where even though they haven't played a lot together, and this is game number one, it felt like, okay, they know how to play off one another, how to excel when the other one has the ball, or even when they're on the floor by themselves. So I love that. And then I also thought, to your point about the ancillary pieces, having Joe Harris to spread out. Dinwiddie's a really good player. LeVert's a 20-point scorer. They have so many weapons, and they go 10, 11 deep. And then the final thought is Steve Nash. Is his first game as a head coach, but really understanding, okay, this is my point guard. Let me give him the keys. Let me allow him to have successes, and then maybe more importantly, learn from his failures and then really vibe off one another. So I loved it, and I thought offensively they were really locked in.
A lot of things to consider here. One, I'm thinking about Kyrie and KD as shooters. The fact that you have two superstar players, an MVP player, like a 5-star player, and let's call Kyrie a 4.5-star player. Like he's not just a normal all-star. If not an MVP, he's something more than that, right? Like Bradley Beal and John Wall. Well, Wall's not a shooter. LeBron's not a pure shooter. And AD isn't really either, though they can both shoot it well enough. When I think of combos at this level, even like Steph and Clay, like Steph and KD were, that's why they were impossible. Steph and Clay, it's not that Clay can't put the ball on the floor and make decisions with it. It's that if he's doing that, you got the best version of what you can as a defense. You want him doing that. But KD and Kyrie, who can both put the ball on the floor and get wherever they want and make good decisions and pass the ball, and are also 3-level scorers who can bomb from the outside. Like normally when we see superstar pairings, they both can't shoot like that. So you can play Allen and Dinwiddie and these non-shooters with them and not miss a beat.
That's a great point. And not only that, but you mentioned some of these other lineups, with the exception of the Lakers, I don't think any team in the league is as deep as Brooklyn. And you saw it in the first quarter. When they go for 40 points, they shoot almost 60%. KD and Kyrie average 37 or put up 37. There was a really high level of comfort, but they also have this ability Brooklyn does to beat you in so many different ways because of that. If Kyrie stays healthy and Kevin stays healthy, imagine what they'll be in game 15 and game 30, 50, let alone the playoffs. So I'm with you. And I think, you mentioned Harden too, Max. Harden, if you're going to trade for Harden, you are doing it because you're going to really believe that this is the year, this is your window to win. But Brooklyn already has that window, and they don't need to mortgage their future by trading a young asset like LeVert or giving away a number 1 or a number 2 couple picks. They just don't need it, And I think Brooklyn's in a great position too because there's not the same level of pressure among maybe like a Giannis, with Milwaukee, because Brooklyn hasn't been there and failed before. There is pressure to win, but I think they're really going to grow into this role and only get better.
Yeah, we got to get on to the Lakers because I need to pick your brain about that. But Jordan Schultz, ESPN NBA analyst or insider or whatever the title is today. I want to get into the Lakers, but I just got to say, like Kenny Smith was talking at halftime about the different players on the team, and they kept saying like Karis LeVert would start on 70% of the NBA teams. I'm thinking to myself, who wouldn't he start on? Karis LeVert start? Karis LeVert's way better than just a starter. Karis LeVert, like I'm trying to think, is there a team? It maybe the Blazers or something with a backcourt, but then you just play him at the 3. You have to show me a team with a 1, 2, 3. Where all 3 guys are better than LeVert. Otherwise, this dude is not only starting on any NBA team, you could feature him as the number 2 option on like maybe half of them. And this dude is at best the 3rd best player on the team. It's a problem. All right, I want to get on to.
Can I just jump in really quick about that? I remember about a year and a half, 2 years ago, having a conversation with Kevin Durant about Karis without me prompting him saying, I really like Karis LeVert. And I remember asking him why. And he said, because he's really growing into himself. He can do a lot of different things. And for him to say that at that point, and he's developed more since, says a lot to me. And so I'm excited about LeVert there. And I know that he probably would start on every other team in the league. But I love him coming off the bench to give them that type of offense.
For those of you who don't have ESPN Plus, talking to Jordan Schultz, who's not only the ESPN NBA analyst insider, but you just saw it up on the screen, correspondent for the boardroom and a bunch of other stuff. Okay, I'm looking at the Lakers last night. I don't care that they lost. I think most people don't. It's going to take a minute for them to rev back up. But I'm looking at the Clippers. Ibaka was a good pickup, I think. Nick Batum, if he's interested, like when he got his money and then he got sent somewhere obscure, right? Like, he out of the way. He seemed uninterested in basketball. If Batum is interested, that's a nice little pickup. And Ibaka's an improvement, but they didn't get a floor general really to organize this offense. And I don't know that they're the biggest challenge to the Lakers because of Paul George's track record in the playoffs. Who do you think is the biggest challenge to the Lakers in the Western Conference?
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I like the Clippers. They beat the Lakers because George and Leonard both had monster games. That wouldn't happen, and it hasn't happened in a best-of-7 series. So I'm with you. I look at the team for me that's going to take another step that can really become an issue for the Lakers is Denver. I think because the Nuggets have so many different types of weapons offensively, and they have 2 great players, and you mentioned shooters, the fact that Jokic can step outside at 7-1 and make a 3, and Murray being that type of shooter.
Not to mention bring the ball up, dude.
He's a point forward, he's a point center. And then you bring in and then you think about Michael Porter. They drafted R.J. Hampton, who's going to give him some juice off the bench. Obviously, Will Barton's there. They have a really good offense. Defensively last year, Mike Malone got them to buy in more. And I think as that team gets another year older, I believe Denver's going to be a real threat. And I know that they haven't gotten there yet, but I think they're right on the doorstep.
Look, maybe Dallas is a Lou Williams away, like off the bench. But Jordan, I look at this team. Think of just they can play small ball. They can play 5 out with nothing but tall guys. Like their point guard really is 6'8" in Luka. Tim Hardaway Jr. is an actual good player now, right? Not just he puts up numbers. He can actually be a two-way player who's effective in a number of ways. He's 6'6", 6'7". Dorian Finney-Smith is 6'7", 6'8". He can defend, and last year he shot. Maxi Kleber's 6'10" and can shoot and defend. Porzingis, if he's healthy, is a problem, 7'3", and can do all those things. I'm really looking forward to tonight's game, even without Porzingis, against the Suns, who had a tremendous offseason this year.
I think Phoenix is going to take a huge step. Phoenix and Memphis are the 2 teams in the West that go from, kind of obscurity, Mac, to 6, 7, 8 seed territory. And I think having Chris Paul is going to be massive for them. I like Phoenix a lot. But you mentioned Dallas. Offensively, they're tremendous. The biggest question for them is, who's going to alleviate some of that pressure for Porzingis and especially Luka. And I think having Josh Green, the kid out of Arizona they drafted, he will alleviate some pressure defensively. He can make threes. You mentioned Kleba, Finney-Smith. They have a really good roster. They love Tyrell Terry.
Richardson now. Like Jordan Richardson now. Like the fact that they lost shooting, but the bottom line is Richardson's going to play more minutes than Seth Curry did because he's a better player overall, right? Like they got a perimeter defender.
And I think also with Dallas, like I mentioned Denver taking a step further maturity-wise. I think Dallas has an opportunity because Luka is so wise beyond his years. And I talked a little bit with Mark Cuban this morning. Dallas feels really, really good about that team. And I don't know if they're there yet, but they're going to take another step forward. And because they haven't had the playoff issues, again, of like a Milwaukee, that team seems to be pressure-free to me. So I love Dallas. I think they're a contender in terms of the top 4 in the West. And if I'm in the playoffs, because of the way they score, it's a very scary app.
Jordan, they're telling me to wrap, but I want to get your answer on this. Based on what you saw from the Nets yesterday, let's say that that's really who they are and they stay healthy, and we get a Nets-Lakers matchup in the finals, KD, LeBron, on fairly evenly matched teams. Do you think the Nets could beat the Lakers in the finals if this is them?
Max, I do. And I know it's a little prisoner of the moment, but I really believe it because of their depth. You know, they can match the Lakers' depth. Now, I think bringing in Shooter and Harrell will really help them on both sides of the ball, especially Dennis for quickness. But because, we haven't even mentioned guys like Landry Shamet, who's a great three-point shooter. The fact that you talked about Jared Allen defensively, he can block shots, he can body people. He'll at least be a presence for Anthony Davis in that scenario. So to me, yes, Brooklyn, because of offensively with Kyrie and Kevin, and then defensively being able to be so versatile, I think they're a real threat.
Jordan Schultz, ladies and gentlemen, on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line. Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. By the way, you can check him out on ESPN. He's the NBA insider. Check him out on ESPN Plus, contributor on the Daily Wager, and a correspondent on the Boardroom. Thanks a million, Jordan. We'll talk again soon. Coming up, some serious movement in my power rankings. See who did not make the cut. NFL. Free shipping is great. Free shipping, no minimum. That's the Walmart Plus magic for your holiday. Get all your last-minute shopping done with a free next day to 2 days shipping on a huge selection of items, eligible items from Walmart.com. With no order minimum, free shipping means the freedom to click that order button to your heart's content. Just another added benefit to your membership. That's why it's called Walmart Plus. Start your 15-day free trial today at walmart.com/plus. See membership details. Restrictions apply. My power rankings.